Hello, everybody. My name is Alexandra with This is Improv, and today we have another episode of Talk About It Tuesday, where we talk about all things the arts and the people who love them. I have with me a very special guest today, Mr. Carlisle. If you could please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello there. My name is Stephen Carlisle, and I am an attorney in the state of Florida, and I have been since 1987, which is a pretty good long time. I specialize in copyright and entertainment law, but my current position is I am with Nova Southeastern University as their copyright officer, and I've been in that position since 2014. Way prior to that, I took a bachelor's of music degree from the University of Miami and tried slogging my way through the music business for a good 3 years before deciding I don't think this is happening, and I went to law school instead. But I went to George Washington University Law School in Washington, D.C., and during that time, I was a legal intern in the United States Copyright Office. And after that was all up, like I said, I came back down to Florida, opened my law practice, and worked representing artists, primarily musicians, because my background was in music, and represented some multi-platinum artists and a host of lesser lights that never quite made the grade. But anyway, so I'm here to talk about whatever you need to know about in the way of intellectual property and the arts.
Of course. So, why would we have an attorney here? This is why. So it's true. A lot of people don't understand their rights as an artist coming into this world, especially new artists. So if you could tell me a little bit about why entertainment law and why the copyright itself is so important.
Well, because the problem with the copyright is that a lot of times artists are asked to sell or give away their rights at a time when nobody really knows how valuable that copyright, might be. And so a lot of times artists make, very poor judgments based upon their not understanding what a copyright does and how it protects them. Now, a copyright will protect any work of art. That means a painting, a photograph, a piece of music, a play, a screenplay. Copyright protects all of that. And it's probably one of the most important things that an artist can take control of. And I always encourage, especially musicians, not to give away your copyrights unless somebody's going to pay you a nice sum of money for them. Industries work differently. The movie industry operates on an entirely different premise than the television industry does, and both of them work on different principles than the music industry does. But the copyright is the engine which drives all of that stuff. So, if you've got a copyright in a screenplay, chances are you're going to be asked to assign that copyright to the movie company, and that's not unusual, but they're going to pay you money for that screenplay and perhaps some additional rights on the back end. Not first starting out, but maybe if you get to be a fairly successful screenwriter, right? So television works on a different proposition. A series will have a book, which they call it a book. It's not a book, but they call it the book, which outlines what the situation is, who the principal characters are, how they interact with each other, and this drives the series forward. And frequently, outside writers will be brought in to do that. Plays are a whole nother, way of doing business. Obviously, you have to have a playhouse, you have to hire the actors, and this is where the producer comes in. Generally the music business has vastly changed because now most of the music industry is centered around streaming, which unfortunately, if you're a composer and musician, does not pay that well. So, these are the times when you're starting out to take care of the business that needs to take care of. And, a lot of people don't go to attorney because they think attorneys are expensive. Yes, we can be expensive, but we're expensive for a reason, and is that we're going to give you advice that's going to save you money way down the road. Unfortunately, especially in the film industry, and this cropped up recently, the people making an independent film don't hire the attorney until there's a problem. And when there's a problem, it's usually too late. And if you're out there and you want to make an independent motion picture, the attorney should be the first person that you talk to and hire, not later on when there's a problem. Because when there's a problem, then we're just trying to fix the problem instead of preventing the problem from occurring in the first place.
Right.
That being said,
Right.
the nice thing about copyright is that it's automatic. A lot of people say, well, no, I don't have a copyright because I didn't register it. Well, that's not really the case. Copyright protects your work automatically from the time that is put what the statute calls a fixed tangible medium. So if you're writing a song and you've got it on your guitar, is it protected by copyright? No. If you turn on your iPhone or your computer and you play your song and sing it in the computer, yes, now it's protected by copyright because it's in that tangible medium, which is a computer memory. So doodling on a piece of paper, hey, it's in a tangible medium. It's now protected by copyright. Anything that you can do to put it in that tangible medium, and it can be a piece of paper, it can be a canvas, it can be a flash drive, it can be anything. But as long as it's gone into that tangible medium, it's now protected by copyright, and you don't have to register. Now, the problem with that approach is that if you want to sue somebody for copyright infringement, then you have to register. So it's to your advantage to register things, and the Copyright Office will accept multiple works on a single application if you call it a collection, okay? And I believe that they would let you submit up to 10 songs at one time, as long as you call it a collection. And the only restriction is the same people or persons have to be the authors and co-authors of all the material. You can't have multiple authors ganging up on one application. But if you've got 10 songs and you wrote them all yourself, you can stick them on one application as a collection. Photographers particularly are taking advantage of this. You can register, at one time it was an unlimited amount of photographs under one registration. I think they maybe now limit that to 1,000 on one registration. So don't necessarily quote me on that. So if anybody's going to buy your copyright from you, one of the things that they're going to ask for is the registration number and the copy of the registration. So that's why it gets to be important too. So, but on the other hand, the protection's automatic. You don't have to register, even though it's a good idea to do so, because if it does come down to litigation, you get certain good stuff by registering your copyright. The first one is that you get to ask for what's called statutory damages, which means you don't have to prove the amount of your damages. You can just make up a number somewhere between $750 and $150,000, and those are your damages that you can ask for if you're registered. The other thing, and we attorneys love this part, you get to ask for your attorney's fees from the losing party should it go down to litigation. So those are two big advantages to registration. The registration's really cheap. I think it's $45 if you do it online, and most everything is done online these days, as opposed to a trademark registration, which is going to set you back $250 per mark, per class of goods that you want to put it in. So the copyright's easy. The Copyright Office maintains a helpline. Hopefully they still answer it, where you can get answers to your questions from people who know a lot about copyright law, and it's free. So that's a good thing too.
That's amazing. This information just fascinates me because a lot of people don't understand that. My sister had written a short play, and that was like in high school. So once she got to college, my mom was constantly telling her, you need to get this legally registered, so that you have that because it was presented, all this stuff, because she wanted to use it later. And my sister didn't. And it's true. It's like in 2 weeks or something, she got everything back and all the papers and everything. And it was like that comfort of knowing that you're now protected and all this stuff.
A lot of people ask what they call the poor person's copyright. Well, what if I just stick it in an envelope and I address it to myself, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that's right for the wrong reason. It protects it for copyright because you put it into a tangible medium and you mailed it to yourself. So now, yeah, you've got a copyright, but the question I always ask you, if you're going to go to all that trouble, why not send it to the Copyright Office?
Yeah, you might as well.
That's the easy way to go. The other thing that I will tell you, and a lot of people don't know, is anybody can put the C in the circle on their work denoting copyright. You do not have to have a copyright registration in order to put copyright notice on your work. Again, because registration is not required. That is not true of a trademark. You cannot put the R in the circle that you frequently see unless you have a federally registered trademark. Now, if you're going to claim trademark rights in something, but you don't have a registration, you can put TM next to it. It just means I'm claiming trademark rights and I don't have a registration. So, those are two vastly different things. And a lot of people confuse copyrights and trademarks. Copyrights protect works of artistic expression, right? Mm-hmm. Trademarks protect a word, a phrase, or a symbol that you put on your goods to differentiate them from other goods and services of the same type. Okay. Right. So a lot of people, they get confused. I'm going to trademark my copyright or copyright my trademark, but they're really two very different things, because a trademark will protect an individual word. Copyright will not protect an individual word or a short phrase, because in the eyes of the Copyright Office, they are too short to have artistic expression. All right. Now, obviously, if your work becomes incredibly famous, you might want to do a trademark registration for something like, if your movie's got, I don't know, Star Wars or something like that, Gone with the Wind or something like that, that whenever people hear that, they think of your movie. Yeah, at that point, you're going to go in and get a trademark registration, but not necessarily before. But if you've got a theater group or something and you want to trademark the name, you can. But like I said, it's expensive. The minimum charge is $250, sometimes $350, depending upon what information you can provide. It's slower than slow. And the people at the trademark office are the pickiest people I've ever met in my life. I mean, picky. Just to, and it's gotten worse. And just to give you an idea of how slow that it is, I filed a trademark registration request in June of last year. Today, I got the first response from the trademark office on the application. That's how slow it is. I read some places they have 500,000 unexamined applications waiting for the examiners to examine them. So it's really, really, really slow, and it is expensive. Mm-hmm. And whether you could probably fill out your copyright application for yourself. Don't fill out your trademark registration yourself, because you're going to make a mistake somewhere along the lines. It can happen, and even sometimes attorneys make mistakes, and it's because it's very complicated.
With all of that information, I also want to ask you personally about your music background, if that's okay. Yeah. What started you getting interested in the music world and industry?
Oh gosh, I started playing music as a teenager. I started out on the drums, and it was a very, I don't want to go old fogey on it, but the 1970s were a very exciting time in popular music, and there was a lot of interesting music being made by musical groups, and it was a very exciting time to be involved in it. So as I progressed on, I never lost that love of music. And I had actually done 2 years at another university studying a variety of stuff. And I decided that I really wanted to go to music school. And thankfully, I had the parents that were supportive of this, and make this extreme right turn from studying political science and art into doing music. But, I had to work at it. I had to, I was a drummer, so I didn't formally read music. I had to teach myself how to read music. I rented a variety of percussion instruments and taught myself how to play them. And when I got back to Florida, I would commute every day down to the University of Miami and practice every single day to get in. And I did get in. And that was a great experience for me. I had a lot of good friends, some of them who went on to be reasonably famous and successful, and some who did not. But it was something that I was very, very passionate about. And when I became an attorney, it helped out that, I knew the way that musicians thought. I know what they were interested in. I knew what they liked. And the fact that I could talk to them on a musician-to-musician basis meant a lot to them. Yeah. But that being said, music is a tough life. It really is a tough life. And because if you are a successful musician, you're going to be away from home for a long time. And that was one of the things that I finally pushed me away, saying, maybe this is not the life for me, because I saw a TV show with Bon Jovi, and one of them turned around and said, okay, we're on a date 60 of a 110 date tour. And I said, wait a second, 110 dates. let's say they play a show every other night, right? That means they're gone for 6 months. And that's not a real good family situation.
Yeah.
And actors will find that too. If you're part of a Broadway touring company,
Mhm.
you're going to be gone for a long period of time. So, whoever you're involved with needs to make that, that understanding clear. And even then it doesn't work. I read Phil Collins's autobiography. And at one point he embarked on a 13-month tour of the world. He was gone from home for a year and a month. And folks, that's the reality. And, in his book, he says, well, they divorced me, but they should have known what they were getting into. Yes. But, when the reality kicks in, that's something else. And Phil's been married 3 times. So that's how tough it is. Yeah.
So what style of music were you playing?
I was playing jazz and fusion jazz, which was very popular at the time, but was on the way out. So and rock. So my first band out of music school was a rock band that was attempting to sort of straddle both areas, and there was 2 jazz for the rock people and 2 rock for the jazz people. So we didn't manage to thrill everybody, but alienate a certain amount of people. But that was a real great experience. And then after that group broke up, I formed another band which played a softer form of jazz, which was a little bit more marketable. But I was also writing the songs that the groups played, and that's always an interesting process because the musicians will tell you this too. I've got no idea where a song comes from. I play a couple of notes, those couple of notes lead to another couple more notes, and then I put the chords in and it comes out of my head. I mean, I have no idea where it comes from. It just comes from out of my head and, and into my hands and onto the keyboard or whatever it is that I'm playing. I'm not sure that, Stephen King sits down to write a book and has no idea what it's about, but, those are the big differences. That's why musicians tend to be sort of artsy fartsy spiritual people. If you've ever seen Carlos Santana interview, you know what I'm talking about. He's kind of spacey. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's something that comes just from you, I mean, we notice it when we do improv, or people say, where do you get that? Where do you get that? It's like, I don't know. The chaos in my brain just kind of throws up.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. But I mean, as you're doing your improv shows, I hope you tape them and videotape them, because they can be mined later for jokes, especially if that joke lands, But yeah, improv is like that. Of course, there's a lot of improvisation going on in music. And okay, you've got the next 12 bars, and here are your chord changes. Go. Right. And you've got to be able to go, and you got to be able to know what you're doing.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you some taco questions. If you could describe your favorite taco as a form of music.
As a form of music, boy, that's a stumper. Soft-ish,
okay,
but with a lot of different elements going on at the same time.
Beautiful. I like that. That's good. Now, I was speaking with Spencer yesterday, and he says you have a killer nacho recipe.
Oh, I wouldn't. I know both my boys love my nacho recipe, but it's not really anything special. I lay out the chips. I get a brick of Monterey Jack. I get a brick of Colby. I grate it on there and I put it in the oven at 400 for 5 minutes, and they all disappear, quickly. It's just use fresh cheese. Don't use the pre-grated stuff. That's the only thing I can tell you. I thought he was going to say my queso recipe, but that's a little different.
Oh, yeah. He said, I tried to remake my dad's nacho recipe and it didn't go as well. So, well, it's probably a lot of the soul, a lot of the love that goes into the nachos too.
That's the only thing is just use fresh grated cheese. Don't use the pre-grated stuff, because it doesn't taste well.
Yes, good advice. If I didn't know you, I didn't know anything about you, and I saw you like across the room, what's something that I can't tell just by looking at you?
probably that I'm a musician. I mean, I look like a law professor, which is probably that's something that's pretty accurate. I mean, I'm wearing a suit and tie to work every day. And if you saw me across the room, you'd probably take me for a lawyer, which is what I am, but not that I can play music.
Yeah. Well, I think it's incredible that you completely understand the law that you are practicing as well. You've been in their shoes. So I think that's also an additive, because especially like in theater, we say you should do everything. You should be involved in the production, the building, the design, everything in between, and then also be on stage, but understand the process so that you understand the work that goes behind it.
The entertainment business is still a street business, and it operates by street rules. There is no Securities and Exchange Commission that's going to come around, or the FDA, or any of these governmental regulations, or OSHA or anything. It's a street business, and it runs by street rules. And a lot of times, especially when you're a young artist, you're going to find people who are going to come in there and treat it like the street business that it is. They're going to come in with, sharp elbows and, shoves and pushes and everything else like that. And you have to be prepared to push back at those sorts of things. And that's where a good lawyer, comes in for you. And you hear this, time and time again, where they said, if I'd only known. There was a program detailing the history of a very, very famous rock band, but I won't say who it is. And one of the things they said is, we were worried about the big, thick recording contract, but we ignored the skinny contract where we signed away the music publishing rights to 10 million albums, right? So those are the mistakes that you make early on, and then you can't undo later, right? That's the problem that you get into. And again, people tell me, well, I could get a contract that'll do that on the internet. And I say, yes, you can, but will you understand what it's saying? Do you know what a mechanical royalty is? If you don't, when it says here's the mechanical royalty provisions, you're not going to understand what it means, right? Or what what the royalty rates really mean. Is a royalty rate based on a wholesale sale price or retail? Because wholesale is roughly half of retail, and your royalty will go up and down accordingly. I did a podcast for another group, and they said, what's the biggest myth that people believe about the recording contract? And I said that they'll actually get paid the royalty rate that's stated in the contract, because a major league record deal, say something like Sony or Universal or something like that. I mean, this is 88 pages of single-spaced type. And what they give you on page 4, they take away on page 44. And a lot of these provisions are, in the quote unquote definitions, where they start chipping it away based upon how they're defining what things, what things are. One of the easiest examples I can come up with was that this is when compact discs were still the method of choice for delivering a musical product to people. And in the royalty provisions, it said the royalty rate for an audiophile recording is 75% of your normal royalty rate. So that immediately makes me go on lawyer mode and saying, what's an audiophile recording? So I flipped to the definitions, and an audiophile recording says all formats made for digital playback are audiophile recordings. And what's a CD? It's a digital format, right? So the CD is now automatically an audiophile recording, which gets a reduced rate, even though it is the most popular delivery method for selling music to people. And these are how these contracts work. I mean, you've heard about Hollywood accounting, right? Well, Hollywood accounting is not Hollywood accounting because you agree to it. When they give you the contract and you have a net profit deal, and I'll just tell you right up in front, you will never see any money on a net profit deal. It's like it didn't exist at all. They have easily 10 pages of how that net profit is going to be calculated. And the first thing that they do is they violate very first principle of accounting is that expenses and income have to be treated the same. And this contract doesn't. It treats income and expenses exactly opposite. Expenses are booked to a film the moment they're agreed to be paid. So if you've got a director out there and you say, we're going to pay this director $5 million, that $5 million is charged to the film and starts earning interest from the moment the director agrees to it, not when it's paid, when he agrees to it. But at the same time, income is all back-end loaded, though we don't count the income against the picture, even though we may have pre-sold the picture in various foreign territories around the world until we actually get the money. So this has the way of boosting expenses and costs and slowing down the returns as they come to income. So that's how Hollywood accounting works. I mean, I did a presentation. I think it was one of the Harry Potter movies. Maybe it was Goblet of Fire, where they actually leaked out a profit and loss statement to it. And this film was like $78 million in the red. I mean, we're talking Harry Potter. I mean, come on. If Harry Potter really lost $78 million, why are they making another one? Why would you continue to make, something that loses close to $100 million? Well, you wouldn't, of course, right? But that's the way that it goes. But you agreed to that, so it's not necessarily that they've done something wrong. You agreed to the way that they're going to calculate your profits, and unfortunately, like I said, it's a street business and it runs by street rules.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's a lot for people to handle on their own. So it does make sense to have someone who understands, or even more than one person.
Yes.
Double checking the work.
As a matter of fact, right before I left, before I went to Nova, I got involved in an indie project that actually my wife had a small part in. But the thing was that they came to me first. So before they booked any of the actors, before they'd done the sets, and then for any they came to me first. So I, set them up, and one of the hard things for people to understand is when you're asking for funding for the movie, right? A lot of people immediately cross the line and they say, well, if you give me that much, I'll give you X% of the profits. Well, what you've just done is you sold a security, right? And there are security laws that we have, and you have to be very, very careful about how you take in money for any kind of project, especially a film project, because you may be unwittingly violating security laws. Because anytime you have somebody give you money in return for a promise of return of profits, you've just essentially sold a security.
Yeah. It's scary stuff. It is scary stuff, especially for people who don't fully understand, but it's good when they go to you first. You hear from a lot of students of, well, I'm going to do this, so I'm going to do that. And I'm like, do you know what you're doing though? You shouldn't be making deals with this building or that building or whatever. Plus we've done some seminars with Florida Film and them speaking on even like location alone, like all of those contracts, which is like, was intense. And it's true. You have to know what you're getting yourself into before you get yourself into it, because you don't want to upset, not only, especially with location, the entire town or the entire city.
I would say that the number one mistake that independent filmmakers make is not raising enough money. They have no idea that once you've wrapped the shoot, that's just the start of it. They really should save about 50% of their money for post-production, getting the sound right, getting the editing right, the color correcting, everything else like that. Because if you run out of money, the editor's not going to work on it anymore, right? And if and then you've got a bunch of nice film in a can that's not going to go anywhere. So really, make sure you properly budgeted your film and save 50% of it for post. Because my wife, I know that you've interviewed my wife, Marilyn, and she says, I can always tell when they're not going to make it work is when they have no sound on the set. Nobody's mic'd up, no booms, no nothing. They just think, oh, we're just gonna, re-loop it in the studio. It's like, no, doesn't work. Doesn't work.
Nope. I haven't done independent film, but I know that doesn't work either. Oh, well, I will ask you final advice maybe that you might have for any artists out there.
It can be a tough way to make a living, but there are people who are successful who may somehow make a living at it, right? a good friend of mine, not necessarily a good friend of mine, but a really nice guy. A client used to be a radio DJ here on the air in South Florida. It was a fairly successful one.
Mhm.
But now he makes his living doing voiceover work out in Hollywood, right? And he's a great impressionist. He does a killer Bill Clinton. He does a killer Eddie Murphy, and so he's, sometimes called upon to do these things. He did a table read for an Eddie Murphy movie for Disney because Eddie Murphy doesn't do the table reads, but he sat at the table and he did Eddie Murphy so well that everybody was, laughing all the way through the thing. The movie actually didn't turn out to be that funny, but that's how it goes. And people say, well, they got lucky. Luck is where preparation meets opportunity, right? So if something comes up, you be prepared to do what it takes. I mean, I got a call that a member of one of the most famous rock groups that has ever been needed an attorney and wanted to talk to me. I drove to Orlando the next day to go meet this guy, and just canceled all my appointments because this was the opportunity, right? This guy's calling me up. He wants to meet me. You bet I'm going to go meet him right now. And I'll just close with this. When I was playing around the clubs in South Florida, there was a group that was also playing the same circuit, and they were called the Kids, Kidz. And I remember walking into the club that night because it had two stages. So one would play and the other would play. And I said, that kid looks like he's 15. He's not old enough to be in this bar. That kid was Johnny Depp. So his band went out to LA to try and make it in the music business. And he started taking acting gigs on the side as a way to keep a roof over his head. Wes Craven is casting the very first Nightmare on Elm Street movie. And his daughter is sitting with him and he's got all the, the headshots. She says, who are you going to get to play so-and-so? And he says, well, I'm going to get this guy. She goes, Johnny Depp, dreamy. And he cast him. And that was the start of an amazing theatrical career, right? And sometimes it happens that easy. But somebody makes it all the time, right? It's like all of a sudden Justin Bieber happens, or Taylor Swift happens, or Ed Sheeran happens. It's not that they haven't been working at it for a long time, but somebody winds up coming out and being the new star. Ariana Grande, perfect example. She first was on Broadway in a Broadway musical called 13. And the son of a good law school friend of mine was also in the same show. So they were starting to get this buzz that I was hearing from my law school stuff about this young girl named Ariana Grande. I said, who? She's going to be big. Well, now she's huge, right? And like I said, it's hard work, but somebody is going to happen too, right? Somebody's going to be the next big star of something, and you just don't know where they are right now. So you can get discouraged. You can decide that it's not for me. And there are always the naysayers about there. Well, how are you going to put a roof over your head if you do that? If you believe in it, keep plugging at it, because somebody's going to make it. And the internet makes it, a lot easier for people to see you and to see your work and to do all this other kind of stuff. Unfortunately, there's a lot of thievery out there on the internet, which is also a shame. But that's the way that it goes sometimes, and you just have to be prepared for that too.
Definitely. That's amazing advice. Yeah. I mean, it takes work to do things, and it might take time to do things, but as long as you keep doing it, that's your passion. So
that's right.
Doing it, there is reward. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on here. It was amazing talking to you about all of this. All of this is such useful information that a lot of people really need to understand. And you're there to help people, which is your role is such an amazingly and incredibly important role in all of the entertainment industry and law and things like that, of just keeping people safe and keeping their rights safe. So that's amazing. Is there anything you would like to promote? This is like the little promotion side of the.
No, I'm very happy at Nova Southeastern University. They take up 100% of my time. And it's been an amazing opportunity. This is the first job of its kind at the university. I will do a shameless plug. I write a topical blog on the subject of copyright. Copyright.nova.edu/blog. All right.
Cool.
And as a matter of fact, there was a new post just today on the Copyright Office refusing registration for a painting that had been created by a machine. And the Copyright Office refused to register it on the fact that it had not been authored by a human being.
Ooh, interesting. That's cool. Well, thank you so much for being on here. If you guys would like to keep up with Stephen, you can definitely go ahead and check out the link down below to his blog. If you like histories, mysteries, and ghost stories of Florida, yes, Florida, the weird and wacky world that I live in, you can go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts and listen to our podcast, This is Legends of Yesterday, where we talk about all of that and more. If you would like to see some of these legends in person and experience some of these stories in person, you can go to www.thisistours.com and take tours with our conspiracy sisters, our very famous ghost hunters and conspiracy theorists that we have here on the channel. Thank you everybody for joining me for another Talk About It Tuesday. Thank you so much, Stephen, for joining us.
No problem.
Thank you everybody. Eat some tacos on this Taco Tuesday. Goodbye.
Bye.